Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Wytpod. My name is Harshit, and I'm the Director of Business Alliances at Wytlabs. We are a digital agency specializing in SaaS and e-commerce SEO. And I have James Alliband with me today. He's the Head of Marketing at Risk Ledger. Now, they provide all the necessary tools you need to run a comprehensive, security-led, third-party risk management program against your supply chain. A big welcome to you, James. So happy to have you with me today.
Thank you very much. Really excited to be here.
Brilliant, buddy. Now, can you share your journey into the field of marketing and how you arrived at your current role at Risk Ledger?
Yeah, absolutely. How long do we have to answer this question? Started out in IT. I've always been in IT from college. My first role started out in support and kind of service desk roles into consultancy, and then found myself into pre-sales at Checkpoint. Had a wonderful opportunity at Checkpoint to go to pre-sales, but naturally still on the more technical side, but leaning into sales at that moment in time. Did that for a few years, really enjoyed it, but felt as though there was something necessarily missing, something I wasn't quite finding in how I wanted to do business, if you will, in that sense. And had a wonderful opportunity at Checkpoint. I owe a lot to my career there in the sense of being able to move into more what we call our emerging technologies role, which was much more of a sales and marketing role. We were really responsible of growing that product set within the region and working as a team to market them together. And I then got introduced into what I saw today now as product marketing there. So that was my kind of intersection into marketing. It was a very sales-led role, but it was a very sales and marketing role. So we had enormous scope really to be able to do what we needed to do to grow the products within region and how we wanted to market them. I then I did that for around about 18 months and then had I started to really understand product marketing at that moment in time. I took a real interest into product marketing, read a few books, joined the Product Marketing Alliance as well at that moment, and really started to consider that product marketing was probably the best next step for me. And had a really good opportunity at that moment to join Carbon Black as their first product marketer in EMEA and APJ. So basically covering everything outside of the US for the business from a product marketing angle. And that's where I really stepped into marketing at that moment in time and really started to understand this beast that is marketing, if you will, and how organizations really build out their marketing program and where product marketing fits. Through a few different product marketing roles, through Carbon Black into VMware, of course, as well, with the Carbon Black and VMware acquisition back in 2019, into VMware, started leading a team of product marketers at that moment. I then moved over to Tessian at that point to lead their global product marketing team and rebuild the team at Tessian. And then had a short stint, but wonderful opportunity out of Tessian to go and lead the marketing team at Carbon Black. So I went back to Carbon Black, went back to help them rebuild the business as we were trying to be spun off at that moment in time, so trying to become an independent company again. So I was responsible, head of marketing for EMEA at Carbon Black, as I went back to rebuild the marketing organization right from the ground up, taking that out of VMware and completely rebuilding the processes. A new CMO in the business that I was working with, Caroline Yapik, and the full team. Didn't quite work out. Carbon Black didn't get spun off, now part of Symantec. And I made the decision at that moment in time to look for an organization a little bit smaller, I think, and more greater opportunity, what I felt, probably some bigger problems to solve in different ways as well. And I got introduced to Hayden Brooks at Risk Ledger, CEO of Risk Ledger, and just got bought into the vision straight away. I think trying to really take a more security and network approach to third-party risk management and being able to help organizations really visualize their supply chain and understand their concentration risk, while really turning third-party risk management from being a mundane spreadsheet point-in-time task, if you will, to more of a dynamic, really inspired me. I went through that process, was really fortunate to land the role in April, started in May, and I'm 3 months into the business at this moment in time, and we're growing quickly, building the team, building the marketing processes. So yeah, it's a lot of, very much in the thick of it, but a lot of fun at the same time.
Yeah, when you start working on a new thing, it's definitely exciting. So I'm sure you're enjoying your time here. Now, I would love to know, can you walk us through your process for developing a successful go-to-market strategies?
Absolutely, yeah. So very much in the product marketing element here. Like I really need to talk about the time at Tessie more so, because I think that's a really good example of when we really drew to what product marketing meant within marketing and how that really implemented and shaped a campaign, if you will. So first and foremost, one of the things that we did really successfully at that moment in time is we built what we called the product intersection within the business, which was essentially product management looked after everything engineering product, and we're really responsible in ensuring that the product was delivered and delivered into a position where go-to-market could be successful. And then my team, we were really responsible in owning that go-to-market, not only the go-to-market strategy, but also really the end-to-end from pre-build all the way through to post-build. We were always responsible from that launch process, but making sure the product was launched, and then we fully drove the KPIs. And in that perspective as well, when in that kind of specialization of the go-to-market strategy, one thing that I felt really strongly about, one thing we built into the launch process was also what the campaign looked like. And working with our peers across the marketing team, we all agreed very early in the process on how we were going to go to market, what was the messaging, how we were going to position that solution in market, what channels were we going to utilize, or how were we going to promote it? Did we have a point in time, an event, for example, that we could utilize to launch the solution? Was there a trade show, for example, that we could get some press attention? For example, we did a launch at RSA just over a year ago where we actually did it the week before. So we took an opportunity to maybe get some media and press attention that we weren't going to get during the week because of the size and scale. So all of those conversations, and I'm a strong believer that conversations agreed upon very early in the process of launching a new product to market. You build the campaign around it. So I think oftentimes product marketing and product launches can be run in a little bit of a silo, and it's run the product, enable the sales, great. And then marketing is still running on their own campaigns. I think there's a greater opportunity to actually start to wrap campaigns into how you're going to bring that product to market, but also push the vision of the solution forward through a campaign, and also creatively really drive that campaign into market as well. So we really engineered the process there. It was a test and learn. We learned a lot as we did that as well. But for me, it was making sure that we got that agreement and process early. We really enabled the marketing team as a whole early as well, so that enabled them to really understand what we were trying to do. And then secondly as well, to be able to design the campaign around that launch. And when we're talking early, I'm talking like 5 to 6 months ahead of time.
Mhm. Makes sense. And any specific campaign that you're particularly proud of that you implemented and that resulted into significant increase in demand generation and your brand awareness, particularly?
Yeah, one thing that I'm really proud of is when we launched our Tessie Respond solution in market. It wasn't directly me launching; it was somebody who worked for me, product marketer that worked for me. But I felt as though that at that moment in time, one thing that was really successful about that campaign is we really implemented a process that we felt was going to work and felt that was going to drive, and I'll talk about it in a second. But as a team, collaboratively, we all knuckled down and really drove into that as well. So when we launched Tessie Respond, we were going for more the detect, protect, respond, and coach element of the way that email security works in market. And we were building out 4 pillars. And that third pillar around respond and enabling security teams to be able to respond to email threats faster, and almost that like SOC-like approach, a security operations center approach into security, we felt was a really important narrative and something that they would, our buyers would really understand. So when we developed that process, what we first and foremost, as I mentioned earlier, we built out that scope of what that value proposition looked like, what the market research also as well, I think was sometimes discounted as what market size or ARR we looking to generate upon this launch as well. Sometimes that can be forgotten. It's like, great, we're launching. Did we know how much cash we're going to make on this? Did we have a hypothesis here? It's really important that you align these together. Are we launching this because it's an expansion model to our existing customer? Is this a new market that we're able to drive into? Very much on this side, we felt like it was an expansion model for existing customers. It was something that was going to enable us to expand into existing accounts and grow those accounts. So at that moment in time, we started to test some of the messaging with our customer success team. I had a lot of relationships naturally with the customers, so we felt like that was a really good opportunity to drive that forward. We then got the marketing team involved. We built out the press release. We built out what the launch was going to be. I alluded to this earlier on the RSA launch. This was that one as well. We updated a bit of our brand and our infographics that we were using and our messaging, especially booth messaging. So it was very evident and obvious as we pulled it out that we'd launched something new. So all of these elements here that we did, which were not just leading up to and all the research that went in, but also on the day and during the week and the event, we made it very obvious that we'd launched something. We prepared everybody that was going to be at the event to have that messaging at hand. They were able to talk to it fluently. And it was something that was very clear and concise, very much understanding the baseline of what we had launched and then what we'd actually launched on top of that in that sense as well. I think developing that process, most importantly, was a lot of documentation. I'm a strong believer of what I call spinal documentation, especially with product marketing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's very much like we went out very early, and when we collected that research, it's okay, let's develop that positioning guide. How are we going to position? Let's get agreed upon with our senior stakeholders in this business so everyone feels comfortable that this is how we're going to talk about this. There's no one that gets to the end of the process and said, oh, this doesn't make sense. It was very much early. That positioning guide was built out. We agreed upon it. We had a moment to say, okay, that's approved. Let's get to the next step. What does our messaging guide, what does our collateral look like for the solution as well? Hierarchical messaging guides across positioning is really important, especially in SaaS and platforms. As you will have a platform that you're selling, but you have multiple modules that you also may be selling as well that can be sold together or separately. It adds a lot of complexity to that kind of customer journey and how the customer is going to understand that as well. And we did a lot of message testing, as I mentioned earlier. Most importantly, developing that strategy was making sure that we had the launch process, we had a checklist in place. Bobby, my product marketer at that moment in time, very much owned that checklist. So we made sure that was ownership area. We had one person in the business that owned the launch from a go-to-market perspective. And we drove through it and we collaborated as a team. And I think that sometimes, again, like that collaboration element can be discounted there. We made sure that we, as a business, brought the product to market, if you will. And we agreed to KPIs early as well. I think that's something, again, that can be left off the table. We agreed on what we were trying to achieve as a business and with our senior stakeholders. So wrapping that all together, it was really important for us as a business to have a new product to sell, have KPIs that we agreed upon, positioning and messaging that we all agreed upon, and a strategy in place. Everything else, I think, bred in between the collateral that we built and how we enabled the team is everything I would expect as a go-to-market strategy. But I'd really summarize it down to really understanding what your value proposition is and having a very clear idea and agreed upon that positioning early. That was one of the areas that we developed that really successful go-to-market strategy, was understanding our value proposition and agreeing on the positioning, making sure that those senior stakeholders are really bought into that as well was really important. Because the last thing we wanted is our leadership team to say, hey, we don't quite understand the value prop here. That was something that we wanted to avoid.
James, you use a lot of project manager lingos. Is that another interest area of yours?
Not necessarily an interest area. I think product marketers have to operate as a project manager in some capacities, and it has to be part of the DNA of a successful product manager. Product marketing being a fairly new role. I think in certain aspects, in certain industries, product marketing is either non-existent or is a little bit undefined, or people don't quite understand where that sits within the business. It's B2B SaaS that's developed that role more predominantly. And now you start to see product marketers pop up in banks and in financial services and outside of tech as well. I think really for me, what I found a successful product marketer is somebody that can grip a project and understand that ownership on that project and how to deliver that project to end to end from a go-to-market perspective. So the project management side of it, I think project management in its whole, and I'm feel confident I can say this, can sometimes slow businesses down. So we have to really balance that kind of structure of how we go in and make sure we're checking the process while also making sure that we've got the agility to deliver to the business quickly, especially in tech. We're just moving so quickly and we're developing and innovating so fast that our value proposition times does slightly change or does evolve or grow. And it really is a product marketer's job to have a really solid grip of that and make sure they're updating and iterating and then launching if they're launching in a really structured fashion, but they're also not slowing down as well.
Right. And James, you mentioned KPIs earlier. I would love to understand which KPIs do you prioritize when it comes to your demand gen efforts, and especially like in your organization, when it comes to your prioritization and also what senior management wants to look into.
It's a great question. Look, at the end of the day, if you're reporting to the board or talking to the board, there's going to be two areas that they're going to be most interested in. And that's going to be pipeline generation, and that's going to be revenue on the back end of that. And what's the conversion rate of pipeline to revenue? The second aspect there as well is going to be, of course, your CAC, your customer acquisition costs as well. So how much does it cost to acquire a particular customer? From there, the board's going to be not too interested in maybe the vanity metrics or the other metrics that you're going to present maybe across the business that you've been successful in. That shouldn't discount the importance, though, of those metrics, dependent on the priorities that you have as a business. So as an example, if you're trying to increase your LinkedIn presence, as an example, increase content generation on LinkedIn and your subscribers, then a really strong metric is going to be your followers on LinkedIn. And that's absolutely fine. Is your board necessarily going to be interested in that? Maybe as a narrative, but not necessarily as a strong metric to understand the business health per se. So what I'd say about KPIs in answering the question is very much around what you're really understanding kind of your stakeholders here. So first and foremost is understanding what the board really wants to see from the business. Are they really happy and keen to invest in marketing, as an example? So that CAC cost isn't too much of a concern at this moment in time, but they want to see that pipeline 4x, 5x pipeline coverage, whatever it may be, and of their higher conversion or conversion rates going up. So meaning that the quality of leads are getting stronger and stronger over time. So really looking bottom of the funnel revenue and pipeline and revenue targets. So really understanding first and foremost what your stakeholders need to understand and where they need to judge business health, that you can help them do that in marketing. And then secondly, it's understanding your projects and priorities that you're focusing on that moment's time and wrapping the correct metrics around it. So a really good example is, let's say we're talking about paid ads that we're trying to convert to the website. Maybe judging opportunity generation, we call this internally sales accepted opportunities. Judging a sales accepted opportunity from a website conversion is probably not the right metric to use, because or maybe it's a book a demo off the website as an example, when actually what we may be trying to do is just enhance our website presence and our brand awareness, and utilizing our website as our central place for people to be able to understand what the organization does. So I'm a really strong believer of understanding your projects and your priorities and wrapping the correct metrics to understand the success of that project. If you're looking conversion to the website from a LinkedIn ad, for example, make sure that you're utilizing website conversion metrics there and not using pipeline metrics or using MQL metrics, for example, there. So metrics themselves, like really summarizing here, you have to really understand, one, what your stakeholders, what's important to them, what do they need to see to really be able to judge business health? And then secondly, how can you measure success of the projects that you have in place? That's going to differ from organization to organization, but understand and wrap the correct metrics at the stage in the funnel you're looking for with what's going to contribute for you to be able to double down. Oftentimes, if you're not wrapping the correct metrics, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for.
For sure. All right. Now, James, what are the common challenges marketers face in your experience, especially when it comes to the B2B space, marketing a platform similar to Risk Ledger? All right. And how do you what's the solution?
The solution, I'm still trying to find it. If someone can send me that silver bullet over, that That'd be superb. Now, look, I think one of the things we find in B2B tech and the kind of SaaS world and cybersecurity in general as well, I certainly see this head on, is we live in an extremely competitive space where you have a flurry of vendors, you have thousands of vendors. You think about the terminology AI. If I go to another trade show and don't see AI on somebody's booth, like kudos to them for not using language and verbiage that is just so generic in some
Actually,
capacities.
overused. I thought, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Exactly, massively overused, and I don't think necessarily understanding the terminology or the value that, most importantly, I think, and in answer to the question of like, how do you overcome these challenges? There's two elements here that I think and feel extremely strong as the biggest importance. One is the element around a very clear, as we were talking about earlier, a very clear and concise value proposition. People have to understand what problem you're solving for them, and they can resonate with that. And if there's an emotional connection to that problem and they feel that and it really hits them there and it's very clear, you've got a conversation in place. You've got something that person feels passionate about. And that starts right at the value proposition. If you don't get that right, you can throw all funky, creative ideas and messaging at something. But if that value proposition isn't resonating with someone, then it's going to be really difficult to convince that person that they maybe should have a conversation with you. So first and foremost, I think that is the biggest problem. And what I would often say, what certainly I observe in B2B SaaS, is that value proposition sometimes isn't as clear as what it could be, or isn't as strong in the sense of the message and that emotional connection to what it should be. So I think that's one of the areas that I would encourage anybody to look at is, and really pressure test that message and pressure test that value proposition. Like, is that clear and concise? And secondary to that as well, can your business talk to it? Can everyone in that organization pitch that 30 seconds pitch on their solution, or can they talk to the value proposition? Something we've done in the past, and I've certainly done in the past as well, is design that 30-second, 90-second pitch, whatever it might be. But can everyone talk to it? From engineers to your SDR team to your marketing team, can everyone have the same message that they're taking to market? It's amazing the results in that really clear messaging and that clear value proposition that goes all the way through the customer journey. And when that's clear and concise, it makes it much easier for people and for our buyers, fundamentally, our prospects, to understand what you're delivering, why you're delivering, what problem you're solving, and fundamentally like the longer term vision of what you're trying to build and grow into the organization. So I think that's first and foremost like the most important thing. Very much the product marketer talking to you there, but very much from that point of view. And secondly, when I talk about more the creative demand generation side, I think looking off menu often can be and it's a test and learn process. It's not something that I think we get right first time, but the looking off menu and trying to look at what your competitors are doing, what other people and other organizations are doing, maybe what's worked in different verticals, different industries, really analyzing and trying to just be a little bit out of the box, a little bit different. How can we stand out here? Doesn't always work. It's a test and learn, but looking a little bit off menu, looking at how you can be creative, maybe looking at if you're doing, I'm thinking here more like in the sense of, if you're doing an in-person organized event that you're doing, like what's the sparkle element in that particular city that gets people interested? Or is there a certain thing within the city or a certain location within the city which is really cool and creative and a little bit different, a little bit off-piece, that you could maybe host an event at and it would interest people? Or could, whatever it might be, like looking at a really off-menu, off-piece campaign that you can run, or event you can run that is just different to what people have done in the past. Now, naturally, that changes and can be done in completely different ways. But I think those two elements there, like really clear value proposition and looking off menu at times and looking at different ways you can do things and trying and learning. I think the other area there is what I would say, and kind of overcoming them and leading my team is, and I think this is probably wrapping together the most important element here, is as leaders, we have to give our team the space to test, learn, fail, grow, and succeed. And if we narrow that down to not giving them the space to fail, ultimately, that can actually make the challenges much harder to overcome because we're really not willing to then step out of our comfort zone and try new things. So I think as we have a huge responsibility, especially within marketing, to communicate upwards on that not everything's going to work, not everything's going to land, and not everything we do is going to be successful. But we're going to balance that, and we're going to make a risk assessment of what we're doing within the organization and within the department. And then secondly, across our team, we're going to give them the space to learn and grow and to have new ideas and try new things.
Right. Any new specific trends that you're seeing in the marketing landscape, particularly in the B2B sector?
I think, look, this differs from industry verticals, etc. Like certainly from what I'm seeing in cyber is people are back out meeting again and very keen to do. What I would say there is that kind of in-person collaboration, learning opportunities. We're starting to see a trend that this is a channel that is not only just working, but giving us immense opportunity to collaborate with people and to learn together. So that's something I definitely would say is we're seeing a trend in that perspective as well. I don't think people want to sit on webinar after webinar after webinar. They did that for a few years. That's not to discount the power of webinars over a period of time, but I definitely seen a lot of trends to people wanting to be around people and utilize those opportunities to get out of the office and to learn or go for a nice dinner on an evening and collaborate on a round table, whatever it may be. There's a lot of opportunity there. Certainly we're seeing that in cyber. We're seeing that with our prospects as well. I think secondly as well, one thing we've seen a lot of, there's a big news article just last night around Google and search. We're seeing a lot of creativity with ads, Google ad space, LinkedIn ads, different ways that we're going now to market with display ads as well. I think that the market's going to turn on its head over a period of time. I don't know where that's going to land, but I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity and certainly trends moving from how successful is Google going to be as a channel long term, and be really interesting to see that kind of play out over a period of time. I think also as well, one of the areas that we're seeing as a trend, or certainly we're seeing as an opportunity space as well, is utilizing trade shows in different fashions. I think oftentimes as organizations, we've gone to a trade show, we've been present there and we've used it as a brand awareness exercise. And I think that's great, but ultimately, like, how can we turn that into that demand generation channel, and how can we utilize that? So I'm now seeing a lot more organizations just be much more creative, really be loud, proud, vibrant at these events, start to really stand out, but also start to wrap other events around these events as well, or make sure that people are just collaborating with you on in your booth and utilizing that time to really get your point of view across to your listeners and to your audience at that moment in time, and really use those as pointer times. As I mentioned earlier, as product launch is an example as well. Just really utilize those channels effectively and start to not look at them as just a corporate event, as an example, but also utilize them as a really an opportunity and a moment or an inflection point to be able to use that as a multiple channel event, if you will.
Yeah. All right, James, I would love to hear now some of the key lessons that you have learned throughout your career and that has really shaped your approach to marketing. Any big key lessons, please?
It's a great question. I think first and foremost, what have I learned? I think, look, stepping from my days at Checkpoint, where I was just figuring it all out in a slightly marketing role, but not necessarily a direct marketing role, that I figured out that first and foremost, one thing I figured out was like, marketing's not just events. I thought marketing was just like events and being out there in the field, and really utilizing that marketing mix was something I felt really important. The second lesson I learned as well, which I think became so paramount to me over the last few years, is just the importance of that, because you're really understanding your customer journey as well, and bringing. Oftentimes we'll look at a campaign and run a campaign as an ad campaign, for example. And that ad campaign creates a conversion, lands on the website, and great, that person's done their job. And one lesson I've learned over a period of time that I think has been so paramount is how can you collaborate and bring the whole team together on that particular campaign, and look at that customer journey right from the start, top of the funnel down to the bottom of the funnel. That really integrated marketing and how you can look at that from an integrated campaign perspective. That was a big lesson for me to understand that and to really understand how not only how integrated marketing can work for you, but secondly, how you can then take your team on the journey together to integrate a campaign and see that customer journey in a holistic way. Another lesson I've learned, certainly on the product marketing side, is very much like understanding how effective, not only how an effective product launch should be done, which we spoke about earlier, but also how to really effectively launch and collaborate with a marketing team on a product launch as well. I think oftentimes that can be, again, a process that can be run in silo, and looping the marketing team in very early into that process we spoke about earlier. That was a really big lesson for me, just seeing the results of how you can really get creative together, get those people in the room together and really understand how you're going to take that solution to market. It was another big lesson as well. I think the other one, and we spoke about this earlier, but the other one as well was on the KPI side. We're so ready at times to judge our performance on commercials. And while I'm not saying that's not the right thing to do, ultimately the business has got to grow and the business has got to hit their numbers. We probably don't celebrate as a team at times. And this isn't just specific to Risk Ledger. This is what I've learned over times, is those smaller trends and those smaller wins, and really understanding them and wrapping the right metrics around them as well. For example, you just start to see month on month your LinkedIn subscribers grow and you're like, oh, great. And actually look at that. Why is that happening? What have you changed? What have you done? Just answering those questions. I think I've learned over time that those are really important things to understand. Wow, you've increased your content production on LinkedIn by 4x or whatever it might be. And we've seen the results. This is grand. Like, how can we double down on this? How can we take that to the next level? Like, really understanding these areas, I think, is really important. Final one for me as well is, and this was a big lesson that I've learned, is I think we all can Google the CMO playbook and we can Google what's their marketing strategy or how to implement a marketing strategy or whatever else. I think oftentimes, certainly what I've learned is getting into that business, and something I've certainly done at Risk Ledger at this stage is get into the business and understand the business, understand the dynamics. Doesn't necessarily mean that what worked in the past may work or may not work before, but design a strategy around that business and not necessarily just trying to implement the generic marketing strategy. Yeah. I feel like that has been a big learning lesson for me, and something that I feel is been really helpful for me to take that into Risk Ledger over the last 3 months, is really understanding that business, understanding the go-to-market functions, stakeholders in the business as well is really important. Their opinions, learn from the people around you that have been in that business for 2-3 years, have maybe been the first people that have tried to build marketing in the organization, and then really build a strategy that's tailored for that organization, because that will ultimately drive the success in that organization, because that tailor is bespoke and fitted for them, and not necessarily just the one-on-one playbook.
Oh, that's wise. All right, James, we're coming to an end now, and let's have a quick rapid fire. Are you ready for that?
That sounds great.
Okay. If you could use only one social media for the rest of your life, which would it be?
LinkedIn. No hesitation. My referee inside of me, James, the football referee, would tell you Twitter, because then I can follow teams and whatever else. But the reality is, I feel like for me personally, LinkedIn has just been a great opportunity to be able to collaborate, learn and grow within my career. And from that point of view, that's always been just a great platform. And just I think the second part of LinkedIn, which I love, is it's never better than cheer somebody's day up when you see that celebration image go off of somebody's got a new job and they've started or they've had a promotion or whatever else. I think just celebrating that success together is wonderful as well. And LinkedIn does a wonderful job of doing that.
Yeah. Okay. What's your biggest distraction?
Other than the cats that are here fighting with each other, so just tried to break them up. Biggest distraction, I think at times within organizations, we have too many channels of noise, whether it's Slack, email, centralized content repository that people are collaborating on work, and you're getting notifications for. But we live in a world of notifications, and switching off from that, or somebody needing an opinion or judgment on something when you're halfway in the middle of the day can be quite difficult. For me personally, Slack is a challenge because I just think that we're trying to collaborate as an organization. That's quite a dynamic process, but times you need to switch off and get your head down into things. That can be a challenge. It's a challenge you have to be conscious about. Away from that, away from work, my football referee and can step into my world every now and again, and that can be a big distraction as well. And the kids, they get home and they can hear them around the house working from home as well. So there's plenty around, right? But biggest one, I think, in day to day would be Slack for me.
Okay. What's the weirdest place you have ever come up with a brilliant marketing idea?
I do a lot of my thinking when I'm running, so I go for runs as well. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the weirdest place, but certainly do a lot of thinking. I do a lot of thinking on that. I'd probably say the weirdest place is while I've been refereeing. Yeah, argument's sake should be that I'm concentrating on the game, but sometimes you get so into the motions of do what you need to do, and your mind spirals a little bit, and you'll go into whatever else. And yeah, I've definitely been in the middle of a game thinking about a go-to-market strategy or thinking about something and then going, wow, okay, I need to think about that later because I can't think that. So probably that's weird for me in that sense because I'm doing a different job at that moment in time and probably should be concentrating on the game more. But yeah, that's definitely a weird spot, is thinking of a marketing strategy on the football pitch.
All right. What habit holds you back the most?
Habit holds you back. I think it goes back to the distraction element. I think just breaking, trying to continuously break. I love collaborating with people. I love staying. I think a strength of mine is being able to like course correct quickly and communicate with people and helping people stay on top of things, or just answering questions quickly to people so people can keep doing their job. But that habit also holds me back because I step out of my work into the work and kind of navigate around the business. So yeah, I'd definitely say just habit of just trying to be ultra collaborative and staying across the business while not necessarily always balancing that with that kind of deep work and getting the execution of a particular project done if that needs to be done. So that's something that, yeah, you have to stay very conscious about.
Gotcha. And going to your very last question. What's your last Gen AI prompt?
My last Gen AI, oh my days, that's a great question. It was nothing fun, to be honest with you. I was testing a little bit of messaging in it and getting a few ideas for a messaging project that we're starting and just understanding. I think it was about a week ago. I think it was something around, tell me a creative way to talk about third-party risk management or something like that. After I'd fed it the messaging guide, and then it didn't come up with anything fun, if I'm honest with you. So it wasn't probably the most wonderful answer, but yeah, it certainly got the brain ticking in some ways.
All right. Thank you so much, James. I really enjoyed my time, and thank you for sharing such great experiences and your wisdom on this podcast. Truly appreciate your time here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been really great just to chat through and sometimes recite moments in your career that you don't talk about so often.
Yeah, reflect upon things that you've done, great things that you've done in the past. Yeah, thank you so much.